Hi, it's Lynn Shuck with Healing and Balance. We're going to be looking at spinal articulation using the wall. That's what that's called, a wall. And when we're working with spinal articulation, what we're doing is both trying to improve our articulation, but also discovering where we can articulate and where we can't. So this spine is a series of joints. Every pair of vertebrae is a joint, and there's possibility of movement at every juncture. But we don't all move very well at every juncture. So that's what this is about. There's two different variations. I am standing about a foot away from the wall, and then I'm bringing my butt back to the wall. Butt, shoulders, head are on the wall. Now as I start, I have a curve at the back of the neck that's not on the wall. The back of my waist is not on the wall. But as I'm moving, the back of my waist is probably gonna flatten onto the wall at a certain point. We want to picture ourselves peeling the vertebrae away from the wall one by one and noticing where it doesn't peel away one by one. So this is going to be very slow. So I'm going to start by pulling my chin in towards my chest and then continuing to take my chin further and further down, head forward, until finally the top of my shoulders has to peel away from the wall. The lower end of my shoulder blades is still touching the wall. And at this point, the back of my waist starts to flatten into the wall a little bit. Bottom end of my shoulder blade starts to come away from the wall, and I'm continuing to peel the vertebrae in my thoracic part of my spine away from the wall until I get the bottom ribs off the wall, but the back of the waist is still on the wall. And then I'm going to see if I can get the back of my waist to move away from the wall bit by bit, vertebra by vertebra, still leaving my pelvis on the wall. Pelvis is still on the wall. And then finally, because your pelvis is not a bunch of separate vertebrae at the sacrum, the pelvis will start to tip forward and your butt stays on the wall and you can curve all the way down, however far you go. Now that pelvis moves as a unit, so we pull that pelvis back up to the wall and we try and get the sacrum on the wall, but nothing else. So we get that sacrum on the wall, and then try and pull the back of the waist, those lumbar vertebrae, one by one. Mine work as a unit, but I'm trying to separate them. And then when I finally get the back of the waist on the wall, my ribs are still not on the wall, or at least I'm trying not to. And then the lower ribs come toward the wall, and I work my way up the rib cage, bottom of my shoulder blades, top of the shoulder blades, they flatten, my chin is still down. And it's not until my shoulders are back at the wall that I unroll my head. That's slow. It's hard work as you're peeling your ribs, your shoulders, your waist, everything off the wall. The vertebrae are trying to articulate and make their way down. Now there's another version of that that's kind of like doing a bridge while you're standing up at the wall. So again, I have this neutral lumbar curve and a neutral curve at the back of my neck, but those may flatten as we're moving. So instead of starting at the head, I'm going to keep my head, my shoulders, my rib cage on the wall, and I'm going to try and let my tailbone start to tuck forward. The top of the pelvis pulls back toward the wall. That's going to start to press my lower back into the wall. And then I'm going to keep the back of my waist on the floor and let the sacrum come off the wall, my pelvis coming away from the wall. And then I'm going to slowly peel the back of my waist off the wall, but keep my ribs on the wall. And then the lowest part of my rib cage starts to peel up away from the wall. And then I get to the bottom of my shoulder blades and those start to tip away from the wall. And as I come all the way up to the top of my shoulders, I'm kind of in a bridge position here. I don't want my neck to be flat on the wall, but it might have lengthened a little bit. Might not be quite the curve it was. I'm going to try and pull down just as slowly as we went up. I'm going to keep my shoulders wide and start to pull my shoulder blades back down onto the wall a little bit at a time until the bottom tip of my shoulder blades comes on the wall. I've kind of got half my ribs on the wall. I'm going to work my way down the rest of the ribs pair by pair, vertebra by vertebra, until I've got the lower ribs on the wall, but not the back of my waist. And then I start to bring the lumbar vertebrae onto the wall. Again, mine work as a unit. I'm still trying to separate that out. And then finally the sacrum comes back onto the wall. My lumbar curve returns. That's spinal articulation at the wall. It should be done slowly. If it hurts, don't go so far, or maybe only do the one that's comfortable. I will tell you that some of the time, the one that works best for me is lifting away from the bottom up, because sometimes going forward and down can bother an old SI injury I have if it's acting up. So you might discover that one of these works better for you than the other. Great. Or they don't work at all for you. Also great. It's just something to play with. It's really good to start to work on spinal articulation. The more mobile your spine is and the more strength you have along that spine while it's moving, the better you can spread the load along your spine. All right, that's what I have for you. Find a wall, go.